Welcome to the Choir Room, a podcast that profiles people, places, and issues surrounding music and voice in the choral and church traditions. You should stay tuned because you're sure to hear something you didn't know, hear from people you thought you knew, and think about the issues that makes making music a worthwhile effort. So, meet me in the Choir Room. I'm your host, Adrian Archer. So, welcome once again to our virtual choir room, and I want to welcome a very good friend of mine, and actually more like a family member of mine because we go way back. My guest today is not necessarily an organist, as I've been doing organist for the last couple of podcasts, but today we want to welcome Hanna, who lots of people know. I know her from family, and of course Rosie has been a faithful member of our church, choir director, and has played a number of roles. And so this is our first podcast of someone who has not been an organist or a pianist or whatever. So we're going to delve now into people who are in the music business, church music business, that are not necessarily organists, although we're going to come back again. So Rosie, welcome to the podcast, The Choir Room.
Thanks, Adrian. I'm happy to be here with you.
I am glad. So Rosie, let's talk about how we know each other. First of all, your mother and my mother are good friends.
That's right. We're very, very good friends. And, when we worked at Navios together, we shared an office.
Oh, you were Navios together.
I knew you before you were born, boys. And your grandmother, Mrs. Archer, and my mother were very good friends. And I always remember when I was a child, I said, my goodness, every time they met, they kissed. I used to call them the kissing friends, because
really?
That wasn't too prevalent back in those days, you know?
Right. So let's talk about then your childhood coming up. Your father was an organist.
Yes.
And is that how you all got into music?
Well, he was a very popular musician, Percy Hanna. Mm-hmm. And I really became enamored with music as a little child, maybe 3, 4, 5 years old. And, Daddy played the organ at church, and my brother Ivan was also a musician. And I remember as a little girl, Daddy used to take me down the street to Mrs. Una Stone. She had a choral group, and that was when I fell in love with choral singing.
Really?
4 parts harmonies, a cappella sometimes, and Mrs. Stone, she said, gospel music, but not the type of rapper we hear now, but real good music,
Old-time gospel music.
Old-time gospel music, in 4 parts, and I was just enthralled by that. And then, when I was growing up, entertainment was like the programs, the church programs, or what we call the programs, the concerts they call these days, variety concerts mostly. And a lot of people came to our house to practice for their songs and things that they would sing at the concerts.
Because your daddy was an accompanist, or your brother was accompanying?
Daddy was, yeah. And then, on top of that, my brother Ivan, as I grew a little older, he was a part of a group called the Bahamas Choraliers. That group was comprised of about any given time from 10 to 15 men and 1 woman. And guess who that 1 woman was? None other than Gwen McDigan.
Really?
Oh my God, I fell in love with her voice when I was a little girl. And they practiced at our house. Addington, Cambridge was actually the...
and Gwen still singing?
The director of the group. And sometimes they would practice sometimes at the Cambridge house on Hay Street or at our house. So I was exposed to all of that as a very young child. And then later on, Ivan also had a band that practiced at our house, Well,
let's talk about our house, because your house is located in one of the...
Jail Alley.
Tell us about the Jail Alley community.
Right in the heart of Over the Hill.
Yes.
Our house was on the corner of Anderson Street, just down the road from your grandparents.
Right.
Your great-grandparents.
My great-grandparents.
Your grandparents. And the Pinders and the other Hannas who lived also with Leslie Hanna, Sarge Hanna, and those who lived up the street from us.
What was the community like at that time?
It was beautiful. Everybody around there was like family. Most of the people that we knew went to St. Agnes Church from the neighborhood. But we also had, like the Pinders, they were Roman Catholics. And then some of the Archers, they were brethren.
Yes.
When Annette married Mr. Allen, I think she became brethren. And there also had some Methodists, like your uncle who lives in Chippingham, what was his name? Walter. Yeah. They were Methodists. So, but mostly people from around the area went to St. Agnes, and we were all like family.
And that's how you grew up in that environment.
And then too, everybody had a porch. And that was a good thing, because in the afternoons you'd be sitting out on your porch, people passing by and you chat and all like
talking.
That thing all of that has gone out of the window,
It's really it's regrettable because then the families all get separated.
Right.
And that community sense that you grew up with is gone for the most part. So you continued doing music in school at all?
Yeah, my first music teacher was Gloria Barrett. Later Lockhart, she was the daughter of Meta Cumberbatch.
Right.
And she lived on Lewis Street. And she was my first music teacher. When she moved from there, she went into the Aurora Lodge Hall, which is at the near the steps at up there by West Easthill Street, where the steps are, the Lodge Hall there, and that's where she used to teach music there. Then when I went off to school in Jamaica, I also had piano lessons with Miss Roderick. She was tough. She'd rap you on your fingers.
My grandma used to do that, which is why I couldn't stay in music with Agnes Archer, because Agnes Archer could care less and I was her grandson. Let me tell you something. Grandma used to hit you on the finger and I say, you know what, I go into Miss Mallory, I never going back to Agnes Archer no more after that. No, sir. Never, never, never. I said, you know what, Grandma, you too tough? I go into Miss Mallory, and I went to Miss Mallory, who loved me to death. Right. And Grandma always thought that she was too nice. But anyway.
And then, later in life, when I went, after I retired from banking and went to COB to do my associates in music, I had piano lessons with Audrey Wright.
And did you like playing the piano? Did you find it difficult?
I like playing the piano. I play for myself.
I understand.
I play for myself. I'm not one of those who go, like to go there and all
and pick it up and just.
I know when Ivan was learning the organ, we had a little Hammond organ where the piano is now in St. Agnes Church, had a Hammond organ there. Daddy used to send Ivan and me down there on weekends to practice on the organ, but I was always intimidated by the pedals.
Or the sound. You didn't like it, you couldn't make the coordination work.
Yeah, the coordination with hands and feet moving at the same time, So I sort of squashed that,
Yeah.
But I still play a little bit for myself,
How long was your daddy playing at St. Agnes?
Well, all told, as they said, it was about 60 years.
Wow.
Before he became the official organist, he used to assist Mr. Ingram, who was Bill Wallace's grandfather. I forgot, Roston Ingram, that was his name. I remember my older brothers told me that Daddy used to go down to assist old man Ingram, as they call him, And then after a while, when Ivan started to assist Daddy as the organist, and all told, in the time that Ivan spent with Daddy and also as the organist himself, Ivan had about 57 years.
Wow.
But also in the meantime, we had other assistant organists at St. Agnes. Mr. Ralph Wood, he played occasionally.
Yes.
Mr. Lila Lean, he was the dental technician, And but now we have Preston.
But St. Agnes has a rich tradition of organists and music.
Oh, yes. And in fact, Daddy's music teacher was Mr. De Stoop. He was a police officer who came from Barbados. And also Father Brown, who was the rector at St. Agnes when Daddy was a young man. Both of them taught him to play the organ.
And after he passed away, is that when your brother took over?
No. Ivan was assisting him all
after
he became capable of doing it. He assisted him all along.
So they were like a duo, right? And so now, so you get out of college and come back, and how did you get formally? Were you always singing in the choir? Were you in the choir as a young?
I sang the choir we had a children's choir. People don't even realize that at St. Agnes. I'm talking about Mr. Hanna doing the junior choir.
Right.
But we had a junior choir under Mr. Timothy Gibson, of all persons.
Wow.
When he was headmaster of Western Junior School. And I remember my sister-in-law told me, she said that she was in the choir. And I always wondered, because I used to go down to church with my friend Jackie on Saturdays to help with cleaning the brass and fixing the altar with the flowers, And Mr. Gibson, they used to practice on Saturday afternoons. And I wondered, why is this man using this stick? Why is this old man using his stick to direct this choir? As a little child,
you know what the stick was about.
And then sometimes the Lord said the stick would fire out of his hand. But they had a good, vibrant junior choir way back then. That was in the 50s. And then I also sang in the Sunday school choir, which was led at the time by Freddie Turnquest, who married George McCartney, and then she went to the Brethren Church.
Yes. And so that you graduated from that to the senior choir.
I graduated from that as when I became a young woman to the senior choir, and in those days the choir sat down in front. That was before we had the loft,
right?
Right in front of.
So you sang
pulpit.
in the chancel area,
yeah,
right. Who was directing the choir then?
No, we sat in the nave.
In the nave, yeah.
I don't even remember. We just used to go there and sing. I didn't have no choir direction back then. We just people were in the choir just sang.
So how then did you get into directing a choir?
I got into directing the choir through my dear brother Ivan. Well, he knew that I was into choral music, right? And at the time when they were constructing the loft in the choir, and they were getting the new organ and all like that. He invited me to come and help him with the choir, to direct the choir. And that's how it all started. And I worked as a director of the church choir for about 20 years. And also during that period, I took over I resurrected the Anglican chorale. Basically, Father Crossley had it for many years, and we used to practice down at St. Barnabas.
Did you find directing difficult?
No, I loved it.
Really?
I really loved it. But particularly in the church choir, I had a difficulty sometimes with telling people that they have to blend the voices. They didn't hear it when I talk about blending,
right. Didn't understand what you're trying to say.
So sometimes it was an uphill struggle, and then you had some people who just couldn't sing.
The choir just couldn't sing. God rest the dead, Miss Early. Father Walking, now see, you can't blame me because Father Walking brought Miss Early up in his interview, so please, nobody come at me. But Miss Early couldn't sing. God rest her sweet loving soul. My grandmother says, Early, quiet down over here, and I can see her now, boy. But you had a time with the Dawson Chorale.
Oh yeah, I had a good time with them. Though you have to keep quiet. And literally, I had a person in the choir before she passed away, but I couldn't put her out because all she could do was croak. Literally croak, But what could you do? You can't hurt the people's feelings,
That's
and they were very enthusiastic about it. But we had some good singers in there, mind you.
Oh yeah,
very good singers.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of good work with them.
How long were you with the chorale?
I was at the chorale for 10 years, I think. I gave it up when my knees started to give up on me. It started to go too long.
Then you give it to me.
And you give it to me.
And then I give it up. I was like, I know Rosie, Hanna, and I don't have good ways. So I better leave this alone and tell somebody else, or tell the Holy Spirit, give me more patience. So
But how I came to resurrect that choir was when I think we celebrated the 140th anniversary of the diocese, and at the time when Bishop Gomez was the diocesan.
Right.
And he asked me to bring some choirs together, a big choir together, for that event.
Right.
And we had that in the Kendall Isaacs gym. Huge crowd.
Yes.
Over 100 singers,
yes.
And
But this is a diocesan event. I can remember it now because they processed from Thompson Boulevard and came all the way down. I remember
it was a huge choir.
Yes,
were you in the choir?
No.
But we had combined choirs from all the different churches, you know.
Right.
And I organized that, but I asked Cleophas to direct it.
Right.
And when we were coming out from that event, Dwight, my good cousin Dwight Dorset, he said, something, we should keep this group together.
Oh, Dwight responsible.
Yeah, Dwight. I said,
so Dwight should direct it.
So I said, I think we should try the chorale again. And that's how the Anglican chorale came into being again.
So Dwight Dorset, you should be responsible for forming the diocesan chorale, my brother, because I know you're listening to. Yes, let's give you credit for that.
He sings everywhere.
He sings everywhere, so you may as well come direct the diocesan chorale, pretending like you don't know about directing.
And then, after I gave up the St. Agnes choir, I turned over the direction of the choir to Dwight. He stayed for a little while. I don't know how much longer he stayed.
Right.
So now, Preston is the organist and director of music, and Gina, my niece Ivan's daughter, she conducts the choir.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about then organizing a choir, because you would know the complexities of trying to get people together. Now, this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, is going to go down a rabbit hole.
Yes.
Because I want a frank conversation. Because right now, our musicianship in our churches is diminishing. So we need to talk about that.
The quality is really seriously diminishing.
Why do you think that is?
I'm going back again to Bishop Gomez when he was the diocesan. When we used to do the Lenten missions, he always asked me to coordinate the music. And I would get different choirs and get the theme and everything for each night and make sure that, everything was cohesive.
Yes, yes.
But that discontinued after he left.
Right.
And, I'm going to be quite frank about it. I don't like this praise and worship business.
Okay.
Because I am not at all enamored with those one-line songs that go on forever and ever and ever.
I got
those
you.
monotonous songs.
I got you.
And they, to me, they're useless as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And plus, some of them can't sing.
Lord God, this could be okay. This is the show now. Yeah, I think the difference between the praise and I think that the good thing about the Anglican ethos, let's say that, is that it allows for different things. But I think that people chicken out of trying to learn proper music because that's the easier thing to do.
And techniques.
Singing
techniques.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's probably easier just to pick up something that you hear from somewhere and then try to put that in the place of where you would actually have a hymn or anthem or a psalm or whatever and say, okay, we offering our best. And the question is, are we offering our best? I don't know the answer to that.
Not always. With my experience having so many different choral groups, I got very, very, very good training, starting off with the, of course, the Anglican Church Choir, the Y Chorale, which was led by Erna Messiah.
Right.
And then after that disbanded, and we went into the Lucayan Chorale, which was actually started by Father Bartholomew Sales at St. Augustine's. And we had the cream of the crop teaching us. We had Clement Bethel, Father Bartholomew, and Father Fleischer, and Miss Messiah in the Lucayan Chorale teaching us. And then Dr. Doris Johnson brought her friend Dr. Henry in from the University to States. And every summer, he would bring his students, some of his music students with him, and break us up into groups and teach us techniques and all like that. It was a wonderful group. Then I also sang with, when we did the first Our Boys, I was in the chorus with that, with Cleophas and all of those.
What did you think of Cleophas?
The original cast. Cleophas was rough. He didn't take any foolishness from nobody. They're going to get colloquial. He didn't take no fool.
No, he didn't take no fool.
No,
Clement Bethel, what do you think about him?
Clement was very good. Excellent. But Clement could insult you and still smile.
Yes, but Cleophas would lick you upside your head. Yeah. One time I had to say Cleophas and say, boss, let me tell you something. I ain't the one. You know what I mean? Because I used to feel so sorry for the natural choir children because he was rough.
Cleophas was rough, you know?
Yeah.
And then also with Antoine Wallace with the Allegro Singers. That was another great group.
Right.
And I'm sorry that disbanded. We had a really rich group, and everybody in that group could be a soloist.
Well, the thing too is it's easier when you have musicians who could sing and who could read music.
Right.
Because otherwise you have a task ahead of you.
That was the upper struggle with the church choir, you know.
Yes, yeah.
Going over.
And I think that our disadvantage, or what we are not doing in a systematic way, particularly at a diocesan level, is training people.
We need more workshops, man. Serious workshops with the church choirs. Weren't you supposed to come to
Don't look at me like that. I know you was going to look at me. Don't you look at me like that.
And then too, another difficulty that I have is when the organist or the other musicians, they drown out everybody. They drown out the congregation and the choir and everything. If you can, as a musician, as a choir director, if you cannot hear yourself singing in the choir, there's something wrong.
Yes.
There's something off.
Yes, yeah.
So they cannot drown out. The accompanist is supposed to accompany the singing.
I think that a lot of people. I think a lot of organists, and I ain't pressing nobody button, but a lot of organists think it's a time to perform.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
A lot of interlude foolishness that have no relation to the music that's playing, and I think that and again, it has to come with training and being understanding of what your place is in the liturgy.
Right. Yes.
Because
it's not a time to show off.
Yeah. It's not an organist who is playing loud music at communion is out of order.
Totally out of order.
I'm sorry, and sometimes you have to pick the right hymns because you're trying to create. The other day there was a diocesan service and Bishop said something that I guess he was pretty much annoyed at people talking and up and down and so. And it dawned on me that we have not been taught how to approach these things correctly because a church service is an ebb and flow. Liturgy is ebb and flow. There's an opening with an introit, and there's a big time to praise, and then you have your readings, and then you have your offertory, and then you have your communion, and they cannot all be the same thing.
No, you cannot be all loud.
They can't all be loud
and
because there's no moment, there's no time for meditation, there's no time for receiving communion.
And another thing too that bothers me nowadays in church is that the church is so noisy. I remember when Daddy used to play the organ, he would be to church at least a half hour, and he would play soft classical music or hymn medley. Same thing with Ivan,
Right.
But you don't have anybody coming to, you cannot be opening the organ up as loud as it can go all the time. That makes no sense.
No, it doesn't.
And then too, what also bothers me at church is particularly the St. Agnes, I don't know how it is at other churches, during the sign of peace. The church sounds like a fish market. I was so, in a way, I was glad when we had COVID because the church was quiet.
Yeah, you couldn't do it.
You couldn't do it. You couldn't go around hugging up people and making a bunch of noise in church, And even after the service, church is too loud and raucous. Save that loud talk for when you're outdoors,
Yeah.
When I remember many years ago, a lady came to St. Agnes. She was Roman Catholic, St. Francis Church. We had a concert or something there. And you should have seen the look on her face after that service was over because of the noise in the church. You leave church quietly,
I think that some people, it's funny because I think that once the business of the peace started, then we went down a hole that we couldn't quite recover from. And I think that in some churches, they let you know, and I know that Father Strawn, particularly in St. George's, would tell you, the peace is not the fish market.
Thank
you
you
shake the
very
person
much.
hand next to you,
and that's But they
end of that.
all over the church.
He'd walk down the aisle and shake somebody's hand, you pass it down the row, and that was the end of the peace.
But then the thing is, in our church, you're roaming all over the place, making noise, it's very distracting for me personally.
I understand. I understand. And as a musician, let me just talk about this. And then as a musician, how do you find your place in this sort of ruckus situation? Because what should musicians bring to a service?
That's a heavy question. But I am not too fond of the CPWI hymn book.
Oh, not many are.
Because in the A&M book, you had the markings, loud, soft, or whatever, and
the music itself, so you can follow.
Back in my day when I was a youth, the organist would follow that.
I understand.
But nowadays, everybody just plays everything loud.
Yeah.
And you're running, you're breathing here, there, and everywhere, and what you're actually singing makes no sense because you're just chopping it all up.
I guess it does come back to the whole idea of training, and I do feel a little bit of whip on my back as you look at me.
Whip you right now.
because I always promise every summer to do something in this direction, and I never get to do it. But you're right. The CPWI book made a terrible mistake when they took that out.
Even
because
some of their harmonies are off.
Yeah, well, the thing too is some people don't play the harmonies in the book.
That's another thing.
Some people play the harmonies in the book. They totally ignore the harmony. They play whatever they want to play, and then when you try to sing the harmony, you suddenly realize you ain't singing the right thing because they ain't playing the right thing. That's always a problem too as well. Have you found that musicians, for the most part, are open to changes, or are they stuck where they are? What have you found?
Some of them are not. Some of them are not at all open to changes. And then we also have these other instrumentalists who sometimes accompany the organist and try to fight with the organ.
Yes.
That makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
And sometimes those instruments are, I have a pet peeve about instruments not being in tune.
In tune, oh yeah.
I remember one time when Dr. Boyer came out here to do a gospel concert for us. And somebody who was a trumpeter, big-time trumpeter from the Royal Police Force Band, one of the pieces opened with him playing a trumpet part. Dr. Boyer stopped him and made him get his instrument in tune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that some people don't appreciate what their role is and how important it is or could be in the sense of the liturgy itself. Because most times, when you have a cacophony of sound, it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, you can't have a drum playing holy, holy, holy. I'm sorry.
Don't talk about the drummers. I've been to one or two churches on occasion, or concerts and whatever, and these drummers feel like they are in charge of everything, and everything is loud, the cymbals and all of that stuff, It's not a good sound.
I think we haven't sorted out in our church. Now, of course, in other churches, it's quite clear where, because of the type of music they sing, the position of these things. But I don't think we've sorted out in our church, that is the Anglican church, where some of these instruments fit and where they don't fit. And unless you have a leader that says, don't play now, because it doesn't work.
But our friend Lee Callender was good at that.
Oh, yeah.
He's put them out,
Yeah. Well, the thing too is,
if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I don't think people should be insulted by the fact that your instrument doesn't work here. Or do you have to play every verse of every hymn?
Precisely, and it doesn't. The thing is, you must not be competing. It's not a competition between the instruments.
Yeah. I think that a lot of times we think that we're doing a lot, and then we're doing too much.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden people forget that the liturgy is about the people's worship.
Thank you very much.
And not your time to perform. You know what I mean? I think that's perhaps where we are in a lot of our churches, particularly as we try to wade our way through trying to be everything to everybody. Which is what we can't be.
That doesn't work. That doesn't work,
we cannot.
I say there's a time and a place for everything.
Absolutely. We can't be everything to everybody in an hour and a half.
No.
Which is why at some services you have this type of music and you have that type on another service. You pick where you want to go, where you're comfortable with. And I think that it's not fair for people to say because you don't like it means that you're wrong.
No. That's
because
not right.
It's subjective.
Right, yeah. That's your opinion. Everybody has a different opinion.
I try my best when I go to other churches to appreciate what they're doing. I don't particularly care for it. But it ain't going to be in Christ Church Cathedral.
Thank you very much.
You know what I mean?
I bet you 100%.
It just won't be there because it don't fit there.
No, it doesn't.
You know what I mean? And sometimes you have to say, okay, well, in this environment, it doesn't work. And so, maybe you want to silence your trumpet or your whatever, it just doesn't play.
Yeah, but talking about this instruments, man, and I'm ready to break on my nerves.
Yeah, and the thing too is really it's important to have your instrument in tune because then you fight with an organ that's perhaps sometimes in tune as well, unless you maintain stuff.
What about when you have two trumpets that are not in tune with each other?
That's
that's very bad. That happens.
Yeah, you can't. You have to have some sort of measure of what's going on, and that's really important. Let's go back to the dance and chorale for a second. How many people have you directed at any one time in a chorale like that? Can you think about it, or from what churches?
All of the churches in New Providence, every one of the churches in New Providence had representation in the chorale.
Did you find it difficult for different personalities?
Not really, No. Not really. But I tell you, I must give a lot of credit and thanks to my two, I used to call them my right hand and my left hand, my darling niece, grandniece, Allison, and Dexter.
Right,
they helped
Fernanda.
me tremendously with the
Allison, who was supposed to be is a priest now.
Yeah.
My God, I got a problem with Allison. I tell you that before. I tell her that before. Father walk in with his name Kenneth Knowles down in Codrington. There got to be some other people who could say mass and others who could do music. Anyway, she can send me a note when she hears this. I expect that. Yeah. The truth is, I did tell her about
talented.
it. Oh, she's very talented in so many areas. And as a clergyman, very effective. And as a musician, very effective. And she told me that sometimes you have to play the organ and run down and say mass. I can't imagine how they make it. Because music is intricately in you. Right. And when you go to a service, where my mother always says, when she go to a service and she's musically disturbed, church is over for her. She cannot take it.
Yeah. I was Allison's first piano teacher, but of course, she can run all
kinds of circles around you now. Yeah. Do you find that with you as well? I mean, you go to different churches. Do you find that if the music isn't just quite right, you sort of like, I just can't wait for this to be over because I can't concentrate anymore.
To tell you the truth, I don't go to too many different churches.
That's the first thing.
Cathedral, St. Agnes, and occasionally that's it, I remember, one time I went to a funeral at a very popular Baptist church. The Allegro singers, we sang at the funeral because one of the members' relative had died, I think. And Adrian, when I came out of that church, I felt like my head was going to burst open because the preacher, we sat up, in the loft where the preacher was. He was screaming so much. I can't take that kind of stuff. I just couldn't take it,
Yeah. Lord have mercy. I knew the show was gonna be some. My mommy probably nodding her head now. She listening to this as well. She's agreeing to it 100%. 100%. So let's talk about it then. What do you think the church should do then in terms of trying to identify people? Identify people and causing them to go down the right path. What are we not doing?
We seriously need to have workshops. Serious workshops.
Your point, let me again.
Directed by people such as Adrian or whoever, and
but we need to formalize our music business.
Yes,
because
at the diocesan level.
You said it.
At the diocesan level. I remember when I was speaking to one of the elderly ladies from church who's now passed. She said that when she was in the choir, when they practiced on Fridays or Saturdays, when they went over all the hymns that they were going to sing. They knew the psalms and the hymns and everything. They practiced those hymns. But nowadays, you just come, everything is helter-skelter. You find out what's going on when you reach church. Sometimes.
Yeah, no. You're right about that. You're right about that. There's no way to plan. I try to plan my music out 4 or 5 months ahead of the game. Because I can't tell exactly where we are. And of course, because at our church, usually lectionary and plan. And not just say, well, and then the thing too is, for heaven's sake, don't sing the same thing every year. Let me tell you something. Find something
different
to sing.
That's a problem that I have. Every, what beautiful stuff, Bethlehem. Every epiphany. And then sometimes, I know I'm going to mash on and say, sometimes in my church we would sing a particular hymn. The choir would sing a version of that, and then couple of minutes later, the congregation is singing the same hymn. That makes no sense.
No, there has to be planning. You have to plan. You have to.
That happens all the time in my church.
No, well. Do better than Agnes.
Yeah,
but but the thing too is unless whoever's making the plan is coordinating with the musicians. The thing too is some people don't respect the role of musicians in their church.
Yeah.
That's the thing too, because I think that you figure, well, you just get up and play the organ, you just get up and sing, and so it don't really matter whether you know about it, what's gonna happen before anyway.
Yeah.
And that's the church leadership issue. That people, unless you say, listen, you know what, we ain't gonna be disrespected in this manner. Please let us know in a week in advance what you intend to preach about, what you intend to have the readings about, so that we could figure out something that works with what you were doing.
That's exactly what I used to do when I was the coordinator of music at St. Agnes. I always found out what the lessons were, what the psalm was, to make sure that it matches what we sang.
I think that a lot of people think that it's okay to just let whatever happen.
Yeah. You have to have coordination, proper coordination.
And the result of that is what you get sometimes on a Sunday. You know what I mean? What about people joining the choir? Why do we not have people wanting to join the choir nowadays? Because the choir age are very unless you have.
We've got a few new members at church choirs recently. I no longer sing in the choir.
You don't sing in the choir anymore?
No.
It's just up and down. It's too much for you now.
Yeah.
But the choir is still huge.
Yeah.
St. Agnes music program.
Yeah, we have a pretty good choir.
Yeah.
Pretty large choir.
And
then we have the junior choir, those.
And then the children's choir.
The children's choir. I just love them. I adore them.
The little children.
Janet Dorset, Dwayne's wife, she directs them.
Yeah.
They're so cute.
Yeah.
And they sing lustily.
Really?
The little ones.
Of course.
Yeah.
How often then do you feel like we should really review our music programs in our church? I mean, for instance, you could be director of music for 20, 30 years, not even give it a second thought. So are we up to date? Do we need to be up to date? Or do we just keep going the way we're going? Or how do we,
We all of us and everything that we do, we should aim towards being better.
Right.
And planning ahead, And I would say at least once a year, you should have a workshop or something by someone who's qualified to do a really serious singing workshop, and not only with the singers, but also with the musicians, so that they're cohesive and they're not fighting against each other.
I understand. I mean, that obviously is your pet peeve, because that's something that disturbs you a whole
Very
lot.
much, yeah. It does.
Favorite hymn?
Oh my goodness gracious. What is that last hymn in oh my goodness.
Not There Was Joy in Heaven. What is wrong with everybody?
I love that hymn.
Oh my goodness.
Look here, I already have my book.
Oh please, Rosie, stop your nonsense here.
And that's my recessional hymn. There was joy in heaven. I love that hymn.
That's to be what, 779 and A&M.
Yeah, 779 and A&M. That's right. The very last
favorite anthem.
Beautiful.
Favorite anthem.
I love anthem. Oh boy, what's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember offhand. My Faith Looks Up to Thee.
Really?
That's a beautiful anthem that we do at St. Agnes. Yeah.
The thing too is, St. Agnes has that huge organ. When was that installed? Was that installed when your brother was in charge of the choir?
That was installed when Daddy was the organist. I don't remember what year it was, but.
But St. Agnes is always they didn't always have a pipe organ.
No. We had a Hammond organ.
And was the Hammond organ down?
We had a Hammond organ downstairs, and we graduated from that to the big organ, to the wall.
I see. Okay. And your father had everything to do with designing it and putting it together.
Yeah, he designed it. Daddy designed it, and my brother Paul did the engineering work on that. Also for the bell tower. Years ago we had a wooden bell tower out of St. Agnes Church, and then also the parish hall. Daddy designed that, and Paul did the engineering work on that.
So let's just go off the church for 1 second. You've been very I won't popular in the word, but you've sort of led a charge to revitalize, or to at least put down in pictures and text the area in which you grew up. Why?
Here again, because of St. Agnes. After I retired, finally retired from banking, I started to go out. I was part of the social outreach program, and we used to delivering soups and all like that. We used to go out in twos, delivering all around the neighborhood. And when I saw the condition of what my over the hill looked like then, it really distressed me. And then when I always was into photography for a long, long time, from when I was a young girl, through my brother Person, my Leslie Hanna, my good friend and cousin. And so I started taking pictures of the houses that still looked good in the area. And that's how it started. And then I used to communicate with my cousin Jackson late into the night, into wee hours of the morning, when he saw the pictures, and he would tell me, and he kept encouraging me. He said, "Why don't you put these things in a book? Put these in a book, So, and which I eventually did. And it's unfortunate that he passed away before he could do the forward for the book.
Because you'd have liked him to do it.
Yeah. I got so awful to do it, But that's how all of that came about. But I'm still taking pictures.
We know.
I'm still taking pictures,
And post it.
Sometimes people tell me, you passed me right by in church.
You take a picture.
I say, would you come to church? I take a picture. Or worship.
But you like the history.
I love history. I love history. And I have to correct a lot of people. The other day I went on a little tour, and one of the tour guides was saying something. I had to correct him on some of the things, And you see all my things back and forth on Facebook.
Yes.
And in particular, most recently talking about the name of Blue Hill Road is BLUE. But all over the streets they have BAILLOU. From I was a child. You see that sign up there by Graycliff on the corner opposite Governor Hill, West Hill Street?
Yes.
Built into the wall in tiles is the sign BLUE, Blue Hill Road, and that was there since I was a child.
So how did it get to Baloo?
Some man named Mr. Baloo got some property down in the... And it was named after the Blue Hills because looking from up at Nassau, looking down south, the hills looked like they were blue.
Wow.
And that's how they got the name Blue. And
that's
the name Blue Hill Road. But then there was a man, Mr. Baloo, who got some property, was given some crown land down in that area. That's how
Baloo had got to Baloo instead of Blue.
Yeah. And I always point out to people that our archivist, late Dr. Gail Saunders, she always wrote Blue, BLUE,
Road.
Hill Road. And so did Anthony P. Anthony White, my good friend. Lord, he was a loss.
Because
he was so brilliant.
Yeah, he was very smart, and a good writer.
Oh yeah.
He could write something.
But he was kind of funny though. I said to him, I was like, Anthony, why you got married so many times? He said, well, Rose, it's just like math. You got to do it till you get it right. But he was so brilliant. And all those articles that he used to write for The Punch, he always sent those to me to look at before he published them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've sort of mixed and mingled with a lot of the luminaries in society in terms of our history and culture. What are we not getting about our past that needs to help us to go forward?
Like I said, in particular, the Bahamian history, we need to know more about where we came from and all of that, and we need to pass that down to our children. But unfortunately, I remember when one of my grandnieces was doing her history for BGCSE, she had to come over to me for books on Bahamian history, and she was a QC student.
Because they didn't have them in school.
And I keep saying that history should be mandatory from primary school all the way up to university level in the Bahamas. When you go to other countries, to their universities, don't they teach their country's history?
Absolutely.
You would know that, right?
Absolutely.
I went to Canada, Canadian history and all like that. But we have to know ourselves and teach our own history and understand where we came from.
Otherwise, you don't have a future.
No,
really.
We don't. And we're losing so much.
We're losing a lot. We're losing a
far
lot
too much. Our culture, our real Bahamian culture, we're losing it. It's been infiltrated, I should say.
Yeah.
And our own people are bringing it in and messing it up.
Well, that's true too. Okay.
And then again, too, as far as musicians, generally speaking, are concerned in the Bahamas, our good musicians are having to go abroad to make a living. And I think that's shameful.
Well, the thing too is, and I didn't plan to ask you this question, but I'll ask you anyway. Paying musicians in church, how do you feel about it?
Of course, they should be paid. They're professionals, right? And why is it that I remember when Alison told me when she was in Canada, she played a lot. The first thing people asked her when she went to play was them, how much is your fee? People here get insulted when you want to charge them. Musicians have to make a living too, Yeah. Especially if they've been qualified and trained, But and people that have events and they say, you think you could get so and so to play for free, But I mean that's not right. That is not right.
It's strange because I think that people, we're still in a place
taking people for granted,
We're still in a place where we say, oh, God gave me that gift. He did. But if you craft that gift and you hone that gift and you didn't do it at no cost. I always tell the story when I came back from university and I was offered the job at the cathedral. It took me about 3 or 4 weeks to even mention to Mummy that I had been offered the job because I was afraid that I was too scared to leave St. George's because I had been at St. George's. I was working there all my life, and I felt a sense like I was betraying St. George's by leaving. And she said to me, when I finally said, listen, Dina Adley called me about a job at the cathedral, and she said, to do what? So I said, be directing music. She said, okay. And I said, and they want to pay me X, Y, Z. She said, and so why are you talking to me? About it. She said, you know how much your education cost me? That's what she said. Mind you, it cost me too. But she said, you know how much your education cost me? Let me tell you how much your rent costs every month. Let me tell you how much your car costs. You better try to get my money back. And I do see that, I think you should be paid. I think that it's unfair. That you should, be. But of course, my episode that I spoke to when I spoke to Preston, he did have a point that faithfulness is where we get a little mix up because you cannot agree to do something 1 week and then next week you're busy or you had a late night and you can't show up to play the organ and you can't come to direct the choir and so forth. And maybe that's a lot of where our issues are with our people who are coming up, that they don't understand that you can't be in the choir for a week.
No. You have to be consistent.
And you have to be consistent. And you have to rehearse.
Of course.
And you listen. And if you can't practice with me, then you're out. And it just...
That's another problem. People not coming to practice, but then when it's a big event, everybody shows up.
Everybody in the choir room.
Yeah, seriously, that happens a lot.
Oh, don't happen, Rami.
That happens a lot.
My choir members, God bless them all who are listening to this program. No, if they can't come, you let your choir director know you can't come, and then we figure, because of course it affects whether you actually could do the piece that you plan to do.
Right. Yeah.
So people can't be there and do it properly.
Right.
I mean, and so yeah, that's the issue. I call a couple names to you, Bishop Michael Eldon.
Oh, I loved him to death. He was a saint, really. He was so good.
Canon Thompson. Archdeacon Thompson,
Father
your rector.
Father Willie, I loved him to death, but he was kind of very stern and set in his ways.
Him and Canon Strawn, God rest the dead.
But he was okay,
Tell us about Father Cooper.
Milton Cooper, boy, he was an interesting man. But listen, let me tell you something, Adrian. There's no one in the Diocese of the Anglican Church in the Turks and Caicos Islands who could sing like Father Milton Cooper.
Really?
Absolutely no one. That man had the most beautiful tenor voice. And people used to come to St. Agnes for evensong just to hear him sing the divine praises.
Oh, wow.
He had a beautiful voice. And when we were children, we used to have Sunday school at 4. We had Sunday school in the mornings too, and also at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
And he, the rector of the church, used to keep Sunday school on Sunday afternoons at 4 o'clock. Boys on the southern side, girls on the northern side. And church used to be full of children back in those days in Sunday school. He was very stern too, and he really encouraged a lot of people to go into the priesthood, like Bishop Gomez, Father Thompson, and others, Father Strawn, and all of those who came up in St. Agnes,
Was he the one that died in the pulpit, or died coming
out
of the pulpit?
Yeah. Or he preached a sermon and he just died right in the pulpit.
Wow. I remember...
1967.
I remember that... The only thing I remember about that was I think his funeral was either on the radio or something, and I remember them saying, "Oh Jesus, I have promised to serve you to the end."
I think that was his theme that night when he sang.
And I could remember as a child hearing it, and I remember my mommy saying, "Oh, it's Father Cooper's funeral," because his wife, Amelia,
that was
Gwenny.
Gwenny was my
Grammy Robinson's very good friend.
Yeah, I know Willis C. She always talked about Willis C.
Willis C.
Yeah.
But Willis C. couldn't sing a note, baby.
They were tight.
But Willis C. couldn't sing a crook. I mean, we used to say to Grammy, leave that part out.
It was Gordon who I used to go with on Saturday afternoons. She had a beautiful garden up there.
Yes.
With a rectory. And
yes.
I get distressed every time I see that parking lot.
The parking lot where the rectory used to be.
That building anyway.
Yeah.
She had a beautiful garden, and that's where I met Doyle and Deanza Burrows, because they were her nephews, They used to come to help her with the gardens on Saturdays. And then on Saturday afternoons, my friend Jackie Jackie Smith, who was married to Charles Smith from Zion.
Yeah.
We used to go with her on Saturday afternoons to clean. We used to clean the brass and fix the flowers for the altar. Fresh flowers every Saturday.
Did you when you were coming up as a child? Because I just want to say, when you come as a child, were people generally involved in the maintenance of the church?
Oh yes.
Because now some people have the company come in and clean.
Oh, no. We still have people at St. Agnes Church who do that every week.
St. Agnes Church is immaculate, and in the beautiful gardens and so forth.
In my day, when I was a child, we had a wooden floor, and they used to scrub that floor on Saturdays. A wooden floor.
Wow, in that big building,
that big church,
Wow, it's a lot.
Very faithful people.
There are a lot of stories about the way we have grown up that have lost forever. I always say that one of the things that I regretted, and at the time I didn't think twice about it, but it was too late, that no one sat down with Bishop Eldon and said, "Tell me the story of the Diocese of the Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos Islands," because that would have been taken days and days and days to tell it. But I think that what we need to do more often is have these sort of conversations so people can actually hear from those who've actually lived the experience. And I'm glad that we're talking a little bit off from musicianship, because I wanted to talk to you about your passion with respect to photography and with these stories over the hill, because a lot of the things that happen over the hill we don't even know.
Don't know about,
Then, in fact, I never knew the road was Blue Hill Road. I always keep correcting people that are telling me it's Baloo Hill Road. Now I know it's Blue Hill Road. Except that you can't see the hills anymore. But I can understand why I was there in the first place.
Down, you know?
I do have some.
But also in connection with St. Agnes' 180th anniversary this year in June, we are doing lots of wonderful things, and I've been charged, oh my goodness, with producing a commemorative coffee table booklet. So I'm sort of gathering historical information and photos and all like that now, and trying to get a lot of history, not only from St. Agnes, but as you say, diocesan history to include in that book.
That's a mammoth task, Rosie.
It is, and I don't know how we'd expect to do it by June. I don't know if we can do it by June. Seriously, that is a big task.
Yeah, that's a lot of work by June. June, this is already February. Just upon us.
It's 5 months. I don't know if it can be done in 5 months. But anyway, we'll have it done by the end of the year for sure.
Yeah. So as we come to the end of the program, Rosie, what have we not spoken about?
Oh boy, I think we covered just about everything.
And I just really want to thank you, Rosie, because first of all, for being my mother's friend, because of course, whatever happens, we're Rosie. You got to call Rosie. Rosie's birthday is this one birthday, Clarice, and up and down. And of course, your contribution to the music of the diocese, because everybody knows that the person who directed the Anglican chorale was Rosie Hanna. And I know, and I've sung with other groups in the diocesan chorale, and I would just sit and watch and say, boy, she more nerve than goat got, my Grammy would say.
But I really loved it.
These people,
I really loved it.
These people rough.
And the thing is, bless their hearts, all of them were so enthusiastic. All of the members, they came, they never missed a practice or anything. Although it was an uphill struggle sometimes teaching some of them the parts, but you have to plunk out the notes and all like that.
Right.
And then another person who was very helpful to me too was Sonny Walking. Sonny would pitch in every now and then.
And the chorale had some really lovely concerts.
The hymn festival. You know how that all came about? Through Idris Reed. He knew that, I've forgotten the name of the man who did the first hymn festival with us. But Idris knew him, and he knew that I already had the chorale, and he asked me.
This is the guy from Boston?
Yes.
Somewhere that had a bunch of hymn arrangements.
Right, yes.
I could think of his name. I can't think of it.
Tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
So Idris knew him, and he said he wanted to bring him down here to do a hymn festival. I didn't know what the devil he was talking about, hymn festival.
Right.
That was new to me, So we arranged it, and he agreed to come. And for the very first one, he and Preston, they were organists for that hymn festival.
That was at the cathedral.
At the cathedral.
Right.
Most of them were at the cathedral, and over the years, it was Eddie Cox. We used Eddie Cox, Allison, Jeffrey.
I will interview Jeffrey so bad, but I sure, but anyway, go on. Yeah.
And we had organists from different churches, who accompanied us different Dexter, Sonny, and when we did the Anglican Chorale and Friends concert, that was a big concert because I invited different groups, Adventists, everybody was that was nearly about well over 100 people in our choir.
Yes.
And for that event, our dearly departed friend Raymond Antonio.
Yes.
I used to call him Mr. Piano Man.
My God.
He was so brilliant. He was so brilliant. What a loss.
I don't think that I have
what
not come to terms with that. It's funny how life is. His sister, Lynn plays.
Yes.
And so Lynn has played for us on a number of occasions when we had that interim between when Raymond died and I think that's after that. And I think that I've only come to terms with Raymond's death because Lynn reminds me so much. And it's funny, Raymond always said Lynn plays better than him. She is magnificent. She's absolutely, and I didn't know she was a director as well, but she's magnificent.
Yeah.
But his death threw me for months and months and months.
Sudden.
And even now, I have to remind myself that he died. The day before Raymond died, we were on the phone talking.
I know, but he died so suddenly.
Unbelievable.
That was a serious blow.
Unbelievable blow.
And then Terry,
It's an unbelievable blow. But of course, people like him leave legacies that you remember them all your days. You say reflect on what Raymond would have said and whatever. So, I think that
he just exuded music.
Yes, he did.
He did. Everything about him.
And
was
the thing
music,
too is, it's also important too that he was brilliant, but not
pompous with it. No, you see.
And that's another issue we have. We have too many musicians who think they are E-Power Bigs. No, seriously. There are too many who take on an attitude that, I'm the organist and no one can touch my organ, and I'm the organist and no one plays as good as me, and I'm the choir director and no one directs as good as me. I pray God every day that I don't get that attitude, because it's a shame.
Yeah.
That's why we can't progress in some areas. Yeah. And some people are turned off by that kind of attitude. You know what I mean? And so I'm saying that for people who listen and encounter people like this, sometimes you have to just let them do their thing.
Yeah,
And then you do your thing.
Right.
And don't cause no stress and no strife. I learned that lesson. Just go ahead and do your thing, because everybody has their bit to contribute. And at some point, people will realize that when you isolate yourself, you can't be any better.
Yeah, right, Boy, something, someone mentioned it. I was speaking to Cleveland the other day. Oh, that's another thing I forgot to mention.
Yes, Cleveland.
I worked when Cleveland did Tremonisha,
that's right.
with the City
that's
Opera
right.
Guild.
Right, that's right.
And you remember when he wanted those choral groups and all like that?
He was in a lot of groups, Rosie.
Yeah, man,
he was in every production.
I was always on the stage singing, And he was telling me that he was watching TV. He was watching President Carter's funeral. And who did he see at the organ but Matthew Stainer, assistant organist.
That's right.
At the president's funeral. And you know how badly he was treated here.
And Matthew
was treated so badly.
Matthew left the Bahamas and went to Trinity in Miami. And then Matthew became the organist. Matthew became the director of music and teaching now at the boys' school. And that's how Matthew got there, because Matthew is actually the music director at the boys' school in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
That's attached to the cathedral.
Okay.
So he teaches there.
Okay.
And he is the music director there and the organist of the chapel. And because it's associated with the cathedral, he is the assistant organist at the National Cathedral.
Yes. Cleveland said he called him, say, Matthew, I saw you.
Brilliant organist as well, Matthew. Absolutely brilliant.
Yes. He was another one who was helpful too on occasions, when I needed him.
Yeah.
He would come, he played for us a couple of times at the hymn festivals also.
Yeah. Well, Rosie, we are out of time. We are just about an hour, Rosie.
Wow.
1 hour already.
Eh?
And I want to thank you, Rosie. And the roof ain't falling, so we made it safely through. Anybody who catch feelings, that's y'all and y'all.
Look at it. I've enjoyed this, Adrian. I can talk to you.
I know.
Like man to woman.
I appreciate you, Rosie. I appreciate you, Rosie. Ladies and gentlemen.
I don't let any.
You don't let anything drop. So thank you very much again, Rosie. I really appreciate it. And part 2 coming up soon.
Whenever. Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you for joining us today in the choir room. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did and took away some valuable insights into our guest. If this is your first time tuning in, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button so you will never miss an episode of this show or our sister show, Sacred Sounds. Sacred Sounds goes live to our page at 12 noon every Sunday, and the choir room posts every other Monday at 11 p.m. If you subscribe or follow our page, you have instant notification of our fresh content and amazing guests. And if you've been with us for a while, thank you for being such an important part of our podcast community. Your support means the world to me. If you've enjoyed today's episode, take a moment to leave a quick review or share it with a friend, or even suggest a person or topic which you think we might all benefit. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more persons just like you. Thanks again for listening to The Choir Room, and sing on.